Hello, my name is Ellen Hooper. I'm an executive coach and leadership expert. Thank you so much if you've had an opportunity to read my chapter, The After in Happily Ever After. So I'm a mum of two, and I have been going through the experience of working out what it really takes to have an equal partnership and an equal household at my house. The reason I've been so interested in this is not just my personal experience. It's because as an executive coach, I coach so many women who have really big work goals, business goals, career goals. And what they find is the sticky stuff that holds them back is how they can truly manage the mental load at home and how they can truly be equal partners. And what my husband and I found as we kind of started through this journey is that we were coming up against so much sticky, gendered biases and assumptions that we had. And my friend Claire Andrews from Safe Hand Parenting has this great analogy that she uses, which is that we come into relationships wearing backpacks. So we've got our backpacks of all the things, how we were raised, what our parents did, what we think is important. And actually, as parenting partners together, what we want to do is we want to unpack our backpack and go, this idea of that I'm going to pick the kids up from school every single day, 5 days a week, because that's what my mum did, do I want to keep this or not? And if we don't want to keep this as a parenting partnership, all right, what are we going to put in there instead? So I just really wanted to take you through some top tips that I have today that I've learned through my own experience and also working with so many other working parents about the after in Happily Ever After. So let me share this with you. All right, the first thing I really wanted to tell you is what would it take for you to get really good at knowing what you truly wanted and being able to communicate that really well to the people who love you the most? And when it comes to knowing what we truly want as a career and executive coach, I've got a few tips for you. Usually what we truly want out of life, and often in life, we've got a whole mix of things. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. It comes down to two things: our personality, so our strengths, what are we interested in, and our purpose. Let me talk to you more about those things. So our personality is about who am I? A hard question to answer sometimes. What do I enjoy? What things annoys me the most? And what works for me? And often we can really make sense of this by knowing our strengths really well. So if you can answer these questions, that's great. Maybe pause here, take some time to think, do I know the answer to these? If you're having a bit of trouble with that, here are some tips. First thing to do is reflect. Spend some time thinking about that. What matters most to me? What things do I really enjoy doing? When am I in really good flow? Secondly, ask other people. Talk to your siblings, your parents, your partners, your friends. Hey, when have you noticed that I've been really engaged and fulfilled? What do you think that I'm really good at? What do you think that I really like to do? What type of thing would you ask me for advice on? What do you think I'm an expert in? What have you noticed that I'm really passionate about? And then the third thing is we've got a whole range of tests available to us on this great thing called the internet. So I really recommend the High Five test. It's a free strength-based test. So go and have a look, just type that into Google, or you'll have an opportunity to use a QR code at the end of this session to download the slides, and I'll send the link to you. And take that really quick questionnaire to just give you some language around your strengths, what you're really good at and what you really enjoy. Then the next thing is our purpose. So you and I could have exactly the same strength. We might have a really strong strength in communication, but actually the contribution that we want to make in the world, the thing that we care about the most, might be really, really different. So we might use those strengths in a different way. Now, when it comes to purpose, I haven't met very many people who feel really clear on their purpose or that they could articulate that particularly clearly. So this is a good opportunity to have a bit of a think around your purpose. What is it that you want to contribute? And I've got some tips for you to do that as well. So we're going to use some of the same techniques. So reflect. What is it that you really enjoyed? If you could change anything in the world, what would it be? If I gave you a magic wand and you could change something for our society, what would you change? Those are really good questions to tap into purpose. Ask. On Simon Sinek's website, he has a free tool that he calls a friends exercise. So you can once again type that into Google, or you can download the resources at the end of this webinar presentation and get that link sent straight to you. And he's got some questions that you should ask your friends to help you work out what it is, what's your why, what you want to contribute, what really motivates you, what your purpose is. And if you want to know a little bit more about your values, there's a really great free survey here, the DeMartini, Dr. John DeMartini values test. Now, since we're talking about how to make all these things work both at home and at work, this is a great resource for your partner, if you have a partner that you parent with, to do as well, to get to know what their values are. When you're really clear on your values and what's important to you, then you can make space for that with each other. And you can also talk to each other about, okay, this is aligned with my values or not aligned with my values. And maybe that's why we're having so much trouble, such difficulty with that. So all those things are very simple. It does not make them easy. These are difficult things for us to work through, and they do take some time and attention. And one of the things that is so challenging in working parent life is that we're often trying to balance so many things at the same time, and there are only so many hours in the day. So here's a list of the things that we're often trying to balance. You know, money. Money's so important. It's the core to our financial stability. It makes sure that our basic needs are met. It makes sure that it ensures that we can be healthy and well. And then it gives us so much opportunity to do the things that we can enjoy or make contributions to the things that we want. Our kids are often taking up a lot of our time and thoughts and energy. Are they okay? What do they need? Maybe just the actual physical time that we need to spend with them, particularly when they're younger. Our relationships or marriage takes up a lot of time and attention. You've done well. Our friendships, our self-care, how are we going to look after ourselves? How much sleep are we getting? Are we going to get an opportunity to do some exercise? You know, am I drinking 8 glasses of water a day? The household logistics, what's for dinner? Who needs to go where? Does the car need to be serviced? All of those things are constantly just bouncing around our brains. And that's what can make it really difficult for us to get the time to know what do we really want in life and how can we communicate that to the people that we love. So in terms of doing this, I think it's really important to use your strengths. That's why it's really good to know what they are. So use your strengths to set up processes that make the most of your strengths. If you have a parenting partner, it's also really good to know theirs as well. Playing to our strengths, so doing the thing that I actually quite like to do or I'm really good at, can really, really help in terms of feeling happiest in life and getting the most out of our partnership. Of course, many of you will have come across this resource before. I really recommend it. And that's the Fair Play deck of cards. Can be a good way to get a really good sense about what are all the things that everybody in the household is doing? Is that split evenly? And is it split explicitly? So often we just kind of pick up patterns or get into patterns about who's doing what around the house. In particular, I've had one parent who has spent some time at home, particularly at that kind of baby stage, what can often happen then, as we both two grown-ups kind of go out into the world wanting to make some contribution, wanting to live our purpose in the way that's both aligned to our personality, is we can often be then holding the load of the day-to-day household things, because when we were at home with babies, that's what we did, and we haven't re-established responsibility and patterns. So think of your household as a workplace. Are the position descriptions clear? Are the roles and responsibilities between the two of you really clear? And one of the great tips that comes across in the Fair Play resources is not just who's in charge. And Dr. Robin Miller, who's an expert in the mental load, has this great tip of divide things, don't delegate things. Don't be the household manager who's always saying, you need to put the bins out tonight, you need to put the bins out tonight, don't forget the bins go out on Sunday night. So really divide responsibilities for those things, but also agree on what the agreed level standard is. What's the standard that normal, not good, but normal looks like in this household? So if my partner's going to put the bins out on a Sunday night, then the agreed standard is that that gets done by 8 p.m. So I'm not thinking, do I need to remind you? Should I remind you about the bins? Will it be a bit naggy if I tell you about the bins? Have you forgotten about the bins? So those two things of dividing, not delegating, but also being clear, like, what's the standard of care for this? Thinking outside the box, like you do not have to do things the way that everyone else does things. If you can have some space to talk to each other about, okay, in an ideal world, if we could just do this in the dream way, what would that look like? And start really pulling back and really getting rid of what other people think is normal, what other people think is good, what other people think a good parent looks like, what other people think a good mum or dad looks like. Like, how do we want to do it for our family? That can be really, really helpful. And then if you're going to be countercultural, if you're going to do things in a way that works for you, then the best thing we can do is start giving less fucks about what other people think. All right. So we got really good at what we wanted. The next thing we need to start getting good at is actually telling other people. And this is really tricky because lots of us will have had experiences where if we ask for what we need, we might have been labeled as demanding or selfish or hysterical or unreasonable. Even if we didn't have those experiences, women for centuries and decades have had those experiences. So I think that lives a lot in our subconsciousness. So how can you get really good at actually asking for what it is that you want? The first thing is actually knowing what you want to say. So you might want to spend a little bit of time preparing. There's no reason why we can't prepare for conversations at home in the same way that we might do at work. If I'm going to ask for a pay rise at work, I'm probably going to think about, all right, what's the business case for that? How am I going to ask for it? What words do I want to use? What examples might I draw on? And I really recommend that you do the same at home. Have a think about what you want to say. Then think from the other person's perspective. I've got here the business and decision maker. Some of my corporate life has eked into this presentation. But do have a think about the person that you're talking to. What do they care about? The thing that we get really good at, and the Gottman Institute, who specializes in marriage and relationship, are really great with their research on this. They say one of the best things that you can do in a marriage or a partnership is to give the person access to your inner world. So that's just a way of saying, let your partner know what you're thinking, and also think about what matters to them. Think about what they're thinking. Can you get access to what's important to them or not? Sometimes we know that a topic feels like a bit of a hot button and we might not know why that is. But if what I want feels like it might be met by some resistance or in a way that's a bit tricky, then I want to just spend some more time and care in how I want to talk to the person about that. I might even say, I know you might think this is silly, or I know that you might think this is me criticizing you, but it's actually that I just really want to tell you what's important to me. Have a think about what's in it for them. If that you do take this approach, what will it mean for them personally and also for your family? and what concerns might they have, and what solutions or options do you have? So there's so much about what we do at work that we can translate into how we have really good functional relationships at home. And I definitely have a belief that the skills that we use in workplaces, in leadership, in parenting, and in marriage are essentially all the same skills. So we can translate them in between these different areas of our lives, and everything that we learn in our different spheres, we can just keep using to up-level our relationships and our conversations. Find a good time to have a conversation. You know, that can be tricky, I know, but when it's not too loud, when there's not too many distractions, you might even ask to set a time. Could we talk about X tonight at 8 o'clock after the kids are in bed? And then that old trick of using I statements. So as soon as I think we use the word you, we know that we're probably moving into defensiveness or accusatory language. So use I statements. And I think that's a really nice way to have made sure that you've actually prepared to really be able to communicate what's important to you and what you personally think. Then the next thing we want to then start getting really good at is having boundary conversations. Because once you know what matters to you, and once you've got good at asking the other people in your life for these things, we need to start shedding all of the other stuff that people put on us, the other obligations and responsibilities of what other people think is important or what we think we need to do so that we can be perceived by someone in a certain way. So this is for having conversations, not just in your partnership, but in life in general. And something that's really important is boundaries are things that you do, not things that you want other people to do. So some helpful phrases, once you have agreed on something, like the bins on Sunday night, you might use, remember what we talked about, remember how we talked about this, remember how we agreed on this. Also, going back to why, most people are why learners. They learn, or they're convinced, or they're motivated by knowing the why of something, the reason for something. So this is important to me because it can be really, really useful. Asking other people why is that important to you, or why does it feel difficult, or why haven't we been able to kind of get on the same page about this, is really helpful. And also, when it comes to all of those, do you want to grab a drink tonight? Can you make a cake for the bake sale? Can you drive 40 kilometers to pick something up for me? All of those things we get asked. If you want to do them and you've got capacity, go right ahead, of course. But just remember that no, I can't, or no, thank you, is just a whole answer. And when we say yes to anything, we are implicitly saying no to something else. So if you're feeling like your life is really full and it's not filled with the right things for you, then starting to practice no is going to be really, really helpful. The other thing with boundaries is we're not very good at it. It's a muscle we're going to have to build. Think about it as a weight training. You're going to start with 1 kilo and you're going to move up. So just remember, we're probably going to have some leaky boundaries to start with. We might not be great at holding them, and we're just going to keep practicing and practicing. If that's showing up for you, welcome. That's very normal. Welcome to being human. Just ask yourself, what do you think will happen if you hold your boundary? And what part of that is assumed versus what do you know or have already experienced? Sometimes there will be very real reactions to holding your boundaries that you can actually really foresee because they are things that you know and have experienced. And sometimes we just have stories that we're telling ourselves. Where can we experiment? Where is it safe to do that? All right. I love this phrase that you can absolutely do anything, but you cannot do everything, particularly not everything at the same time. So these are some tips for getting your time back as well. Time is not kind of just a battle between you and your parenting partner. There's so many things that have an impact on your time. So my first question is, do I need to do this at all? And here I've got for you a picture from my house, which is this incredibly messy whiteboard that my kids draw all over. And I spent about 6 months walking past that thing thinking, I must clean that, I must clean that, I must clean that. I never got around to it because it actually wasn't very important. And there was this really big moment that came from me. It sounds so silly. But when I thought, I'm actually just not going to clean that at all because I'm going to spend ages cleaning that. I'm going to have to get out some kind of industrial stuff. And then it's going to get messy again. And does it really matter if it's got markers on it? Like, that's literally what it's made for. And so there are so many things living in our brains that if we could just be happy that we're not going to do them, could be really, really useful. So that's the first provocation I recommend. What could you completely stop doing? Then there's something about, do we need to do this to the high standard that we thought we needed to? So a great example for this is, if I'm going to have some friends around for dinner, do I really need to cook a 3-course meal, or should I get some takeaway? Or maybe I'll ask them to bring something and I'll make something too. So what's the kind of plan we have in our head? What's the standard we've got? Does it really have to be that high? Could we do something different and easier? Do I need to do this as frequently? So kind of comb your life for things you're doing really, really regularly and see if you actually have to do them that often. And do I need to do this myself, or could someone else do that? And that's when, as your kids get older, you can really bring them into the things that you could do. You might want to outsource some things. You might want to get some groceries delivered instead of going to the grocery store. Have a think about who else could do this. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that you got a lot out of this. I'd love to keep in touch. There's a QR code here that you can use to download the slides that we had today. I will send you all of the resources and links to everything I've mentioned today. It's free, that you can go and have a look online and use. So you'll be able to get access to all of that. I'll also send you through my social, so if you wanted to stay connected there, you can. And by signing up to this, you'll also get access to my newsletter, which is very infrequent because it's one thing that I didn't need to do quite so frequently. Thank you so much. I hope you found that useful, and I'd love to stay in touch.